This is what happens when you work to change things. And first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
I just finished the best business book since Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's incredible autobiography. This one's called Bad Blood. It's by John Carreyrou, and it's about the sordid tale of Theranos, the alleged blood diagnostic company, and its charismatic and culpable founder, Elizabeth Holmes. This book reads like a novel about greed, about chicanery, and ultimately about tragedy. Tragedy for what it did to the people who used the device. I promise you that you will hate almost everyone connected with this company and think they should belong in jail when you're through reading this remarkable book, written by the man who first exposed the giant con, John Carreyrou, Pulitzer Prize winner reporter from the Wall Street Journal. That's why I was thrilled that he dropped by the set to talk about his riveting expose that you should read between now and Labor Day. Take a look. John, anyone who read Bad Blood, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley startup, could they still believe that she is anything but crazy?
Well, I think people are in the right to ask and question what's going on in her mind and what has been going on in her mind for 15 years. I like to say that this is different from a Bernie Madoff type of fraud in that she dropped out of Stanford really wanting to be an entrepreneur, and her idol was Steve Jobs, and she idolized Apple. She really wanted to replicate that success story. And I don't believe that she dropped out with this notion that she was going to pull a long con and defraud investors. But unfortunately, over the years, she ran into setbacks with this vision of a blood testing device she was trying to pursue. And instead of admitting those setbacks and admitting to her investors where she was with the progress, she lied, and the lies got bigger and bigger, and eventually the lies got so big relative to reality that it became a pretty massive fraud.
Well, John, there's two skeins of this book, and I just love it. One is how all these people were fooled, but the other I want to put first. And you have a quote of someone screaming in the audience at one point, "You hurt people." This woman really hurt people, didn't she?
Well, I mean, one of the most outrageous things about this Theranos scandal is the fact that the company went live with its fingerstick tests in Walgreens stores in Northern California and Arizona 5 years ago in the fall of 2013, and knew the two people at the top, Elizabeth Holmes and her boyfriend, Sonny Balwani, knew very well that the tests were unreliable. For one thing, the Theranos machine only handled several of the tests, a handful of the tests, and most of the tests were being done on third-party commercial analyzers that they'd modified and hacked to adapt them to small samples. And one of the things they did was they diluted the small droplets of blood to make the volume bigger to accommodate these commercial machines. And that, of course, introduced all sorts of room for error. And in the end, this company had to void nearly 1 million blood test results.
Who knows what could have happened. Now, on June 15th, she was indicted by the federal government. And when I read the book, I felt that you could make a very compelling case right from the book that she did commit fraud. And if you think fraud should lead to jail time, that she should be in jail. Is that a reasonable presumption?
I mean, I think this did metastasize into a fraud, especially once she and Sonny Balwani, her boyfriend and number two at the company, made the fateful decision to go live with these fingerstick tests in the fall of 2013. Aside from endangering the public health, which they did by doing that, the key thing to remember about that decision is the company was running out of money then. And so by going live with the technology, they were able to solicit new funding to go to people like Rupert Murdoch, who, by the way, owns my newspaper, and other investors such as the Walton Hares, and say to them, look, obviously we're for real. Obviously I've succeeded in inventing what I've told you I've invented because we've gone live with the technology. We're offering these fingerstick blood tests in stores in 2 states, so obviously it must be real. And that's how she was able to raise the last $700 million in funding, is by using the fact that they had gone live in the stores to get more money.
Well, there's another element through the book that I love, this insular nature of what basically is a Stanford contingent. And you've got some, I regard, genuine villains, including people I revered. George Shultz is a villain in this story. David Boies, the attorney, is a villain in this story. I have to tell you, General Mattis is a villain in this story.
Well, these are people, I mean, two of them, Mattis and Schultz, were on the board of Theranos, and I agree with you, they don't come off looking good. Oof. In the story. I don't think they realized that Theranos was doing most of the blood tests on these hacked commercial machines. In fact, I've seen documentation recently from the SEC inquiry that pretty much shows they had no idea. And so she was lying to her board as well.
Okay.
I believe that even David Boies, whose associates certainly don't come off looking good in the book, after what they did with Tyler Schultz, George Schultz's grandson, whom they ambushed at one point in his own grandfather's house. Even David Boies, I don't think, knew that out of 250 blood tests on the menu, you had more than 240 that were being done on hacked commercial analyzers.
Okay, well, that's we're going to give them that, but I don't know what to give to Mr. Bird, who at that point was running Safeway, so desperate for growth, to Walgreens, fearful that CVS was going to get this. Blinders in these people, major business people.
Right. One of the most incredible parts of this story is that Walgreens actually hired a laboratory specialist, a consultant, and brought him in-house in 2010 and 2011, a guy by the name of Kevin Hunter. And he was hired to look after their interests and to kick the tires and to do diligence on Theranos, which he proceeded to do. He went out to Palo Alto several times to see the company's headquarters, meet with Sonny and Elizabeth. He was also in these video conference calls they had every week. And he started smelling a rat in late 2010. And he tried to alert Walgreens to the fact that this could become a major fiasco. And the executives at Walgreens just ignored him. They were so afraid that Theranos would turn around and strike a deal with their rival, their arch rival, CVS, that they just ignored their own in-house consultant.
Okay, now there is an element of Jonestown here. When I was a reporter, I covered Jonestown and what happened. And for the most part, the people who drank the Kool-Aid were not that educated and not that worldly. How could this con artist convince so many brilliant people? So many brilliant. Is it the blacks? Is it the black shirt? Is it the deep voice? Is it the Steve Jobs? I mean, these are brilliant thinkers, and they were all conned.
Right, and I think the answer to that is she's a very smart woman, very charismatic. One aspect of her is that she really did believe in her vision. She really did believe that creating this machine that would be able to run every test known to man off just a pinprick of blood, that would really be good for society, and that it would do good. And so I think she has this condition called noble cause corruption, which is that she ultimately believed that what she was going to achieve once she got there was going to be a good thing for humanity, and therefore every lie and every corner she cut along the way was justified.
Well, one of the things that I think is astounding is this puppeteer, Sonny. It seemed like people didn't even know who he was until you wrote the book.
Right. I mean, if you try to look him up on the web, you can't even find a photo of him. I think he's had the internet scrubbed. But to people who had been at Theranos from the beginning, and there are a few employees who did manage to escape the massive purges that went on there all the time, they knew that he was her longtime boyfriend. They essentially started living together in 2005 in a condo he owned in Palo Alto. For the first 5 years or so of the company, he was behind the scenes. He didn't actually work there. And then in 2009, he joins. And at that point, this culture of fear and paranoia, constant turnover, all that goes into overdrive. And from that point forward, they really run this company as a couple, and they perpetrate this fraud as a couple.
All right, one last question. What is her next or last act? And is black the new orange? Could this woman end up in prison?
Well, she's facing 11 counts of wire fraud. The indictment by the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Francisco describes 2 schemes, one to defraud investors of more than $700 million, and the other to defraud doctors and patients and make them believe they were using accurate and innovative technology. And, the potential sentence is, if she's convicted by a jury, is 20 years behind bars. Recently, the prosecution has handed over all the evidence as part of the discovery in the criminal case, and it's contained in a 2 terabyte hard drive. So I mean that's more storage than you have on your average computer that you buy nowadays.
Well,
so that gives you
not a nanotainer, bigger than a nanotainer.
Much bigger than nanotainer.
Well, I want to congratulate John Carreyrou. He's Wall Street Journal's investigative reporter, author of Bad Blood: Secrets and Lies in the Silicon Valley Startup. I knew the whole story. It read like a fast-paced novel. You must read this book. Mad Money's back after the break. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.